recorded at this time so that other people who were not able to attend tonight's session will be able to see and hear from all of our candidates. So I wanted to first of all say thank you to the president and vice presidential candidates for running and the 3 director candidates for running. It's time, talent, and treasure over the next 2 years that if you get elected, that you will be using. And it's a great reward to be able to serve Dignity USA. My name is Louis Speaks Tanner, and I'm the current president of Dignity USA. So I want to introduce our presidential candidate, Chris Pett, and our vice presidential candidate, Lauren Carpenter, who are running as a slate as required in our bylaws. So welcome. And then we have Marie Sweeney, Daniel Baruda, and Martine Richker running as directors for the board of Dignity USA. So welcome all. If we can start by each of the candidates, starting with Chris and then Lauren, to give a few words to describe yourself and tell people who you are. Chris?
Well, first of all, thank you, Louis, and thanks to everybody for joining us this evening. It's an important time as we think ahead to some important times for our community, our organization. For those of you who don't know me well, I have been a member of Dignity since the 90s. I started in Dignity Chicago, and over the years have had different leadership roles, including chapter president. So I know what it's like to run a chapter and to be involved in helping to make communities vital and responsive to our mission and purpose in coordination with our national movement and Dignity USA. And joined the board about 3 years ago, and I'm happy to say we have a great group of folks already. We're going to be adding some new people. Louis has provided, and Alice have provided extraordinary leadership. And I feel it's, my time to be able to step up and provide the gifts that I have and the commitment that I have and share with Lauren for the future of Dignity. So I'll let Lauren talk, and then I don't know if we're going to talk more specifics about leadership and what our vision is, but I'll let Lauren jump in here.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. So my name is Lauren Carpenter. I currently live in Baltimore, Maryland. I got involved with Dignity back in 2008. I was recently graduated from college, kind of newly out, living in San Antonio, Texas, doing the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, and just really having a strong need for an LGBT community and a Catholic community. And the Dignity San Antonio chapter really just welcomed me in and gave me that first sense of the Dignity family that I've really felt over the past years. They also very wisely paid for me to go to my first conference in San Francisco. And it was at that conference that the few young adults that were present kind of gathered together and said, let's band together and really grow this young adult group. And kind of the rest is history from there. That was kind of my first taste of organizing on a national level. After a year in San Antonio, I did live in DC for a year, so I got to experience that chapter as well. And as I said, now I live in Baltimore. And I don't have a chapter here. I do have, a wonderful, inclusive, affirming parish, a diocesan parish. So I kind of experience what it's like to live where there's not a chapter. But I do still, I was in New York not too long ago and got to experience the Dignity New York liturgy. And when I was there, just reminded me that while I get a lot out of my parish, there's still something really special about a Dignity local community and chapter. So I kind of get to live a little bit in both worlds and I have experience from both worlds. So I had some past experience with the Young Adult Caucus, have kind of stepped back from that. This year have been pretty involved in the Dignity Transgender Support Caucus, and have grown a lot in that work. And yeah, just really looking forward for the opportunity to continue to grow and serve Dignity USA.
Okay, very good. Why don't we hear introducing, Marie Sweeney, and then we'll go to Martine and then Daniel.
Okie doke. Hi, I'm Marie Sweeney. I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I have been a member of Dignity USA with my husband since 2000. Each of us has had wonderful experience with a wide diversity of friends over many years. And as a matter of fact, that was one of my criteria when I was dating, was to make sure whoever I dated was down with a variety of people. And when Fred told me that he was going to be away for a while because he was vacationing with his fraternity brother and his partner Joe, being male, I thought, this guy has points, we'll keep him. So my involvement with Dignity until 2 years ago when I was elected to the board was mostly local, although our chapter also partners with Dignity Dayton, which is part of an inclusive community called the Living Beatitudes. So our chapters are like sister chapters, and we do some things together occasionally, and that's really very, very nice. One of the things that I am very interested in and have been involved with on the board is to make sure that I have a better understanding of who we are nationally. And as we travel around and hold our board meetings in different places, for me that has just been a great gift to really see how Dignity is present in different places. I'm also on the chapter or community services committee, and we've been calling all around the country, just listening to people to see what's working and what isn't, as this movement of Dignity USA continues to gain great steam. I am an ally, and because of that, I want to involve some of the 68% of Pew Catholics, if you will, who are supportive of inclusion in our church, and really make them aware of the work that Dignity is doing. And I've been able to do that. It's a challenge because I can't put anything in church bulletins, but I try to work my sources and get the word out, and people are generally very pleased and have become supporters. So that's one of my special missions. And I'd be delighted to continue on the board. One of the things that I've noticed, and both Chris and Lauren have referred to it, we've got a lot of complementarity on the board. People have different strengths, and it's a delight to see how people complement each other as we do our work. So I would love to continue in that role.
Okay, Martine.
Yes, hi. My name is Martine Witchker, and I live in Washington, D.C. I have first learned about Dignity when I moved to D.C. about 5 years ago and found Dignity Washington, and have been a member ever since, as well as soon after joining Dignity USA. It instantly felt like a warm community that I wanted to be involved in, and I got involved very quickly with social events and going to Mass every Sunday. It really, to be able to put my faith community and my sexuality together in the same group with a whole host of community was really an amazing thing that I found here and through Dignity Washington. So I went to the conference in Minneapolis, the Dignity USA conference in Minneapolis, and met the whole host of this national community, and was so enamored and inspired that I took the baton from Lauren, actually, as she was the chair of the Young Adult Caucus, and I took that up in 2014, I believe, 2013 maybe, and was a national leader for 2 years of the Young Adult Caucus, which was also super life-giving and helped bring that community together more. We started a national retreat for young adults of Dignity USA, and had 40 young adults come to DC that next summer on the off summer of the conventions, which was really a great a time to bring us all together and in community and in fellowship and in spirituality, and that's continued to be a life-giving community, I think, for many of us. And I've continued to be involved nationally and locally, and just really see Dignity USA as a unique role in our society. And, still in 2017, we need to be vocal and stand up for our rights, our dignity, and our humanity. So as LGBTQ Catholics in our church and in our society. So I welcome the opportunity to step up and serve on the board if so elected. So I look forward to that.
Okay, and Daniel.
Hey everybody, Daniel Baruta here from Washington, D.C. And as I said in my opening statement, I'm just so humbled, and I never thought I'd be running for the national board. I've never really been on a national board before, but I have a lot of great experience. Some of my attributes are real positivity. People really like working with me. I'm an extrovert off the charts on the Myers-Briggs. I'm an ESFJ. And I'm also a maximizer. I like to take people and really let them realize their talents and bring them up to a maximum capacity. And it's been a real humbling experience. I can't even spell the word humble. When I think of my 4 years as president of Dignity Washington, I kind of eked out Mike Morgan for the longest running president. And I know the community has been really appreciative of my leadership skills, but I think I've grown so much from them and their compassion and their spirituality and support from Mary Ann and Louis and all you guys. I inherited Chris's great work with us. He came and did a workshop with us on our strategic planning when Alan Rose was president, and I took over that. And then, as Martine mentioned, the Minnesota conference was just phenomenal. I remember, Jamie Manson, that video that the Minnesota folks put together, people singing about inclusion in children. We came back so energized from that, and we started a 4-year process on gender inclusion in terms of our ministers at church. Really happy to announce that we've had our first female presider, Reverend Ann. She's fantastic. She and her husband have been almost at every mass. They have a gay stepson they're really proud of. Ann even came to our St. Patrick's Day parade carrying our banner. She's just been a real godsend. And since then, we've had 3 or 4 other women come. They all want to become Eucharistic ministers, lectors. We're on a roll, and I just can hope that, in all humility, I can bring those talents to the board. My real big thing is community development. I'm a social worker, but I'm not a therapist. I'm more of a community organizer. And I'm so thrilled to be able to work at AmeriCorps, where we spend millions of federal dollars supporting nonprofits. And in my portfolio, I've got all the Catholic. I've got the Jesuit Volunteer Corps of the Northwest, Lauren's Kindred Program. I've got Catholic Charities USA. I've got the Notre Dame Mission Sisters. I love those guys. They're just my best friends, and they're doing great things for people. And I hope I can bring that energy to the board. Ooh. I can't.
I think Louis is muted.
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
Okay, thank you everyone for your opening comments. And so now I would like to have Chris and Lauren talk about the vision that they see for the next 2 years.
Lauren, if it's okay, I'll get started.
Sure, that'd be great.
And, Daniel, thank you for your compliment, and something I was able to do a number of years ago over the past few years is work with some of the chapters who have inspired me, and I heard that as a common theme with everybody. And we have a talented bunch here to offer to our larger Dignity USA community. So Lauren and I are both very thrilled and very honored to be putting ourselves forward for leadership roles. Hopefully you had a chance to look at our candidate statement. We wrote it together. You'll notice we use the word believe quite frequently. We bring with us a strong belief in the continued mission and purpose of Dignity USA. I think we continue to see the relevance and the importance of the work that we do. We're in spaces and do things that others are not doing. And we're hearing and seeing over and over the impact it's having on individuals all across the country and even internationally. So our belief is truly in our mission and purpose. We certainly reinforce our belief in Dignity's role as the go-to leader, as the preeminent voice of LGBT Catholics in partnership with our friends, our partners, and Equally Blessed. But we do have a unique place, and we have unique leadership through Marianne Duddy Burke and our staff. Marianne, of course, is the go-to. She is honored, she is respected, and she is a wonderful leader and articulate voice for us who's out there every day. And we as a board are just thrilled, and as a community, larger community, thrilled that we have her as part of our mission and purpose and of our work. And I know Lauren and I and the board, those of us who are on the call, are going to continue to support her and to back her up and to encourage her and to nurture her and her needs. Lauren and I both bring diverse experiences. Lauren spoke a little bit about hers. I didn't mention that I'm from Chicago, Dignity Chicago. I'll be in trouble if I don't mention that. A proud member, so I'm the farthest west of the group. But again, what I heard through some of the other candidates, through Daniel Martin and certainly Marie, we've been on meetings together, and Lauren, our true belief in the importance of our local communities, and nurturing those communities, our chapters, and nurturing the caucuses that in many ways reflect the diversity and the future of our organization. We certainly are excited about the growth of our national members. So those who may not be particularly affiliated or have that opportunity to be affiliated with a particular chapter, but who are as committed as they can be. I've also been chairing the development committee the last year, a couple years, and we have a wonderful individual, Sean Miller, who's part of our committee, who's in Akron, Ohio, and he has just blossomed and has felt connected to a much broader community and purpose. And in that way, he's been able to contribute. And to me, that's a great vision for us to carry forward and to continue that tradition of engagement, of development, as Daniel mentioned, about optimizing the potential of the larger organization as well as within our local communities and any individual of good faith who wants to be a partner with us. So let me stop there, and I'll let Lauren jump in and have her share her unique perspectives as well.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. And I think kind of as we're approaching our 50th anniversary here and a lot of the work that's been done, kind of what the vision, for the next 2 years as we approach, kind of looking at this dual process of looking back at where we've been and also looking forward to where we want to go in the next 50 years. And I think that kind of really represents the vision of Chris and I of preserving these traditions and, everything that makes the Dignity family so wonderful. But then also looking forward to even kind of potentially untapped populations, people who have been underserved by Dignity in the past. So maybe the transgender community, or Marie is a big advocate of allies. And how do we bring those people into the fold to keep moving Dignity forward? And continuing to find ways to gather us together in new ways, whether that's electronically, just trying to be kind of nimble and adaptable as we move into the future, and those ways to gather, through our national conference, which is, so important to bring people together. What was I going to say? And so just continuing to, and to help people see our relevance, because I do believe we are so relevant in the work that we're doing, especially here in the age of Trump. It's, kind of, we're having to really stay on our toes and find these opportunities. But, I think we're doing a great job of trying to let people know how important we are. And so I think continuing to do that over the next 2 years will be really important.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris and Lauren, for those words. Just as a reminder to everyone who is participating live, and you're also on a device that you can see the candidates, that you can open up the conversation sidebar and type a comment, or more importantly, a question that you would like me to ask the candidates. So continuing on, especially with our three directors, there's a question is, what specifically do you hope to help bring about in the next 2 years as a director? Marie, you're shaking your head, so
Yeah.
I'll let you go first.
I'll go first since I already have some roots down, but I really do want to continue my work in reaching out to allies and getting the word out about Dignity USA. The community in which I ministered here at The Ohio State University for a number of years, I mean, we've had inclusion in that community that predates me, and I've been here 35 years. So we've got a long tradition of it. And one of the things that folks who participate in Newman don't always recognize is that it's a wonderfully vibrant, inclusive community. And inclusion of LGBTQI people is just part of the life. And so folks need to be reminded not only that there are people, for example, in remote rural areas that still really suffer, but there are things going on the national scene that need a Catholic voice, that need a strong Catholic voice. And so in addition to informing and trying to include allies, more allies in our movement, I also want to help to contribute, and I have volunteered for a communications committee that has yet to be formed, but I really see that Dignity is in a position right now with the current Republican administration to be able to reframe this whole religious liberty conversation and really bring it back to our experience and our freedom of religion, and to be able to engage on a national level. And so those are a couple of the things that I'm very interested in addition to continuing to stay in touch with local communities and see what is happening, because the local communities guide the whole. It's not the other way around. It's what happens locally gives us directions for the future. And so I really want to remain committed there and stay engaged with those local communities.
Okay.
So I guess I'll go next. So I'm picking up on Marie too. I would love to, spend some time traveling around, visiting the different communities and just sharing ideas and being a mirror and just helping people grow. Also, as a gay white man, I think we really do need to diversify the board and Dignity USA. So I would do everything in my power in 2 years' time to get somebody to take my place that definitely represents a different part of the multicultural United States of America. But I find, and I find this all the time, that sometimes it just takes going up to somebody and asking them to get involved. We've done that at Dignity Washington, and we've gotten some great new people involved. So even at the conventions, it's a great time to spread the word. And I just love meeting people and really zoning in on what they're really good at. And I'll do everything I can to help diversify the board of Dignity USA.
I'm going to build off of what Daniel's saying and something that Lauren mentioned about moving toward the future in the next 50 years and thinking about what communities have Dignity USA not served as well, or can we bring more into the fold, into our conversation, into our communities, especially the transgender community, communities of color, I think are incredibly important to see the intersectionality of sexual justice, LGBT issues, and Black Lives Matter, and of transgender rights, as their even right to go visit the bathroom, and that their identity is being attacked across the country. So doing what I can to help bring that conversation forward bringing those voices to a table and learning from them, and want to continue to help us breathe the community and bring the Dignity family to broader, bigger communities. Something I did as we heard feedback from our young adult retreat, the first retreat we had here in DC, was this issue of talking more about racial justice and including communities of color. And we put on a panel, I helped moderate a panel for the Dignity USA community a couple years ago to talk about issues of racial justice and the intersectionality of our identities, which was just a really great propelling us forward to continue this conversation and the difficult work that we will have to do personally and organizationally. So I bring that perspective and that mission in my role.
Okay. Chris or Lauren, did you want to add anything at this point?
No, everybody speaks really well.
Yes.
Really well. We've got a talented bunch here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So we still have the conversation area online open and waiting for some more questions. So please don't be bashful about if you're participating today on Wednesday to ask a question. And let me see. Let me read this and then we'll see who's going to answer it. It is essential that Dignity USA is well funded to be able to be an effective voice. Plus our staff need to have a just wage. Membership alone is insufficient as a funding source, especially when the largest percent of members are in or moving into retirement. What are the candidates thinking about this challenge? So I'll give you a second to think about that. And you know, that comment is very true. Though we have been fortunate over the last, I think, maybe 6 to 8 years of having some grants, you know, some successful grants that have helped, you know, cover us. We've had unfortunately, some people die that have bestowed their, you know, parts of their estate to help Dignity going, but it does remain a challenge to continue to bring in more money. Not an insurmountable challenge, but it is a challenge. So who would like to go first?
I'm certainly very interested in jumping in on that issue.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, believe it or not, I am. You know, we face a lot of challenges, but challenges are also opportunities, I think. You know, the last 3 years on the board, 2.5 years on the board, had given me the opportunity to go inside and understand in a clearer way our financial position, the challenges that we face that many others face who are membership organizations with aging populations, or all the different factors that have an effect, whether locally or collectively, on people's sense of wanting to belong to a larger community, to contribute, to remain focused and connected on the mission and purpose. So in the last the last year and a half, you know, I've been able to work with a number of people, some on the board, and so again, people locally, from a development committee perspective. Fundraising is a challenge. But I think it begins with a true, again, what we've said, a commitment and an articulation of our mission and purpose, and reminding people of how relevant that is. And what you've noticed in the way we've conducted some of our appeals in the last year, and Marianne and her staff have just been pivotal in this, to really put stories forward of people who have been testimonials, of people who have been affected and said, I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't feel connected, I wouldn't feel loved or respected if Dignity did not exist. So we need to continue to tell those stories. Again, I think what we need to do, we've had some conversation as a board, as we look ahead, the 50th anniversary is a great opportunity. We'll be putting together and talking more about how we plan to create a blueprint for the future. As is suggested, We have to think about new and different populations of people to engage. We have to think about who might be other partners with us that we're not leveraging as much as we can, who bring their own resources, and those might be also resources of talent and capability and experience. But in the end, I think we have the challenge to continue to articulate to a broader base of people, to our own, and as we reach out as a national organization, especially those who are maybe not connected by chapters, but people who are still connected to us as national members, to truly articulate, here's the need that we have. The visioning that I think we do around fundraising is, if we would like to do this, we would like to, be able to provide, as Marie said, we'd like to have more of an organized presence and around religious liberty issues as they come up. To do that, we need funds. This is what it's going to cost. Are you with us? So it's going to come down to some very specific fundraising and asks going out to people, but I think it's up to us to articulate, here's what we're offering, here's what we can do, here's what we can take the organization to do work that others are not doing and continue to impact people's lives in a very real way. But it's going to take this level of commitment of financial resources. And it's going to be up to us and the hard work that we're going to need to do as a board and engaging our chapter partners, our caucuses, and national leaders in being those shared voices with us, speaking out about why our mission is important. Here's specific things we would like to accomplish. We want to continue to nurture and sustain our staff. If we can add more capability to our staff and offer more capacity for Marianne, think of where we can take the organization. So it's hard work. I think there's definitely a commitment on the part of those of us who have been leading and managing the organization so far. And we've got, again, new people besides Marie, who's provided wonderful support locally and given us a great perspective from a national perspective as an ally. But we have a lot of opportunity ahead of us. Our 50th anniversary, I think, is going to be a great opportunity. We're considering perhaps doing a capital campaign. But again, what's important is that we create that compelling vision that will move people beyond our typical population to become part of that mission and to support it. So I've said a lot. Lauren, why don't you jump in? You have all these great ideas.
Sure. No, I think Chris has been, really an incredible leader in this area. Especially these past 3 years on the board. And so, kind of support everything he says. And I think kind of what I've taken away, because this has been a real learning area for me, kind of an understanding how the funding of Dignity works, where money comes from. It does not grow on trees, apparently. It's just like learning that, and just the need to diversify and have different funding sources. It can't just be from people paying their $50 membership, and so Chris has really encouraged us all, even as board members, to really think creatively about what are our strengths and how we can help in development. People have had house parties. Some people have been able to reach out to get more major donors, reaching out to foundations. So I think really just kind of being creative and open to what the new possibilities are, and really thinking, kind of playing to our strengths and utilizing those to get money from new places.
And to add to that, as I'm trying to get the word out to allies, the gatherings that I have are not explicitly fundraiser, but friend raisers. But once you have friends, they want to be able to support. So that's clearly an ask during the evening, but the primary purpose is to get people the message, because I know the people who are already invested. And then it's a matter of, are you willing to put your money into this investment also? In addition to that, I was able to approach my former religious community. I was a Sister of Charity of Nazareth for a number of years. And we wrote a grant asking them to give us some money to fund scholarships for people in rural areas to come to the conference in Boston. And very recently, I got in touch with one of the people who actually wrote the People's Pastoral from and about Appalachia, and just asked, are there people you know? And we've got 6 new people applying for those grants as a result of that. So as you were talking also, Martine, about other places where we need to expand and connect with, that's another whole area. We had a wonderful member who came to our meeting in Dallas, but he drives, I forget what it is, Louis. Lauren, help me out, Chris. 3 hours?
Yeah, 3 hours, but 150 or more miles away.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing, but he has no resources where he lives. So again, we're not all city dwellers where inclusion is even a conversation. But as we reach out into some of those areas to provide support, then they also can develop friends to include in our fundraising. And Chris, I have to really salute you and the committee, and especially our friend in Akron, for doing some of the fundraising during the liturgical seasons that are so spiritually based. The Stations of the Cross during Lent were powerful. Absolutely powerful. And those kind of inspiring things to have available on the website, again, touch people that may or may not be members of Dignity. And I think that's very important.
Thanks, Marie.
So this is Daniel, just one outside the box thinking. I know in the AmeriCorps world, we have some of our nonprofits who have a fee for service. So they can charge people for the services they provide and use the money to go back into the program. I'm just wondering if Dignity USA has ever thought about starting a for-profit arm. I don't know what the service would be. I don't know what the scope would be, but that might be another way in the future to think about how to raise money that could go back into the organization and not have to count on donations so much as a fee for service.
Okay. Anyone else that want to talk? Not everyone has to talk, but I do appreciate. Just as a reminder to the audience is that, board members typically, spend their own money to get to the board meetings. They take their own time out. They do a whole bunch of work that they normally would be able to spend with friends and loved ones. So it is a very big commitment when you step onto the board, and I know that for a fact. And most of our board members are very committed in being very generous in their commitment to Dignity USA, and especially in donating money. So I want to thank those of you that are stepping up to run for re-election, Marie. So thank you. There's another question out there and don't be shy about asking some more questions by going to the conversation bar and writing a question, is what can we be doing on the chapter level or local community level and nationally to engage younger members and prepare for a generational transition? Now, and the board has started to do that in having some, more numbers of the younger than 50 on the board. But how can we prepare the organization to do that?
I can speak a little bit on both levels, I guess.
Okay, Martine.
Well, we've seen young adults grow, the young adult group, as we call it, grow at Dignity Washington over the last several years. Dignity, Washington, D.C. is a transient place. People move here for a year or 2 or 3 and come and go. So we've also seen people come in our community for a couple of years and move elsewhere. But having a consistent space where and events like obviously we have their mass every Sunday, and I know not every chapter does that, but we have set up just at the very much like once a month after Mass gathering for dinner, and we consistently now for the last year plus have had 10, 15 young adults come. They know it's on the second Sunday, and they join us for dinner. And people come, you can tell people are coming just for that Sunday and getting involved, right? They might not be coming for Mass all the time, but that is totally okay. I know, but also other chapters should be thinking of other ways to get out in the community. I know the Indianapolis, I think, joined or tabled at their Pride in Indianapolis for the first time maybe a year or two ago, and saw a great reception at the festival, their Pride Festival. We've seen people also at Dignity Washington, since we're always active in our Pride. People have seen us there and come to Mass, months later, or are reminded about us when they see the sign outside of our church. So just having that consistent presence, consistency as a one way. I also want to just shout out to Facebook and social media, but especially Facebook and maybe Twitter as well. But having that presence, and Dignity USA has done really well, I think, in the last couple of years in increasing their presence there, and that just broadens the reach of like Marie said, people who aren't maybe in urban areas but still can get in touch and connect to our website and to our issues and to what we're talking about. So those are a couple of things. I might jump in, maybe think of some other things. I'll let someone else.
I can jump in.
Can I jump in on that too? Because I think.
Okay, let Lauren go first, and then you'll go with Danielle.
Sure. So, yeah, I think kind of like a common misconception maybe of our generation is that we're so into technology that we don't, that we just are into our phones and Facebook. But I think there's a real hunger in our generation to connect with other people in real life. So I think finding ways to provide that, I think, Dignity USA has provided a huge amount of support in terms of finance and logistics for the two young adult retreats that we've had over the past year, and I think that's really helped to grow new leadership and new interest and new support. So sometimes I think it is about just money and funding some of those opportunities to kind of hook people in, opportunities for people to get together. But I do think the flip side of that also is, while we don't just live on Facebook, like Martine said, those kind of things are very important for us to feel like an organization is vibrant and alive. So I think kind of continuing Dignity's presence in that area. And I do think, our generation is kind of, as Martine was mentioning earlier, the importance of intersectionality and social justice. Those are really important to our generation, and seeing that organizations are run well and are diverse organizations, welcoming organizations. So as much as we can continue to grow in that way, I think people will see that we're really walking the talk, and hopefully want to continue to support us.
Okay, Daniel.
So, thank you. So just to follow up, Martine is selling himself short a little bit. He and his partner, Chris, have stepped up to be Eucharistic ministers. Chris has joined the board. We now have 3 people under the age of 30 on the board, including our president, Ben Testa. I think the challenge is for us older folks to step aside and have confidence in our younger folks that they can do the job we've been doing. And it takes a lot of humility to do that. But until we give them the reins and keep them involved, and our young folks redid our logo, they helped us redo our bulletin. Like Martine said, they updated our social network pages, something that us Luddites will never be able to do. And it's just really important for us to step back, trust them, encourage them, and be there when they need us, and really make that transition that Marty wrote as a question.
Anyone else want to jump in?
I just want to, I mentioned this at the beginning, but it was really awesome to be able to convene our first national young adult retreat. I don't know if it was actually the first ever for Dignity, but first in a while, a couple of years ago. And we were able to do that again in the off year between conventions in Chicago last summer. And people are very much expecting to have another one, next summer, and we hope to maybe have it maybe in Texas or in California out west, because we've had it hosted in DC and Chicago. So kind of, making sure we are getting closer to people around the country, moving ourselves around, just as we do for the national convention. But that has been something for the young adults to look forward to, not just waiting 2 years to see each other, on the national scene, but just the following summer. And we have, national calls every month too with the Young Adult Caucus. And, there's to continue to connect, So that is, the Young Adult Caucus, and the support that, like Lauren said, the support that Dignity USA continues to give financially and to get us to these places so we can really connect in person has been invaluable. Really need to keep investing in that.
Okay. There's a question that many members are very connected to the local chapter community and are unaware of how National or Dignity USA actually, the things that they're doing. How can you build a national culture? And I know that's that is a tricky question, because even on a local level, there are always plenty of people who are not aware of what's going on, even after 5 minutes of announcements, but.
It's true. Well, I think it is a real challenge. And if I could just share this little story, Marianne was approached by one of the national newspapers asking if we wanted to buy an ad. And the ad was going to cost something like, $30,000?
Higher.
And she just laughed and said, that's one of our position's salary for the year. We don't have that kind of money. And their response was, you are so present and so well known that we figured you were a $2 or $3 million operation. So we are known sometimes better in the bigger community than we are within Dignity. And I think the challenge is to be able to connect with the leaders of the local communities, which again is what the chapter and community services committee has been trying to do, to make sure that people really do know what's going on. Our communication is a real struggle, and we acknowledge that, and we're trying to cover as many bases as we can. But we need direction from people on the local level that can tell us this is what works here. So it is a challenge, and we are trying to address it.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can build on that, Marie, thank you, because you speak so well of things. It's been an ongoing challenge. Sometimes there can be creativity that comes out of a tension between local and national organizations that are locally and nationally based. Typically have this kind of tension, but it can be also a creative opportunity. Meaning again, as Marie said, what are the most creative ways we can offer to engage with one another, to build our community as a larger organization and locally. And I think the Chapter Services Committee, there's, Bob Butts has led that with Marie and some other folks from members who have really made an effort to reach out, especially the last several months, to call, schedule calls with chapters, with groupings or regional chapters, to be able to listen and hear and bring that back to the board. The board has adopted the tradition over the last several years to conduct its meetings in cities where we have chapters to welcome us, host us, so that we can be a presence to them, so that they know who we are, what we're about. And I think I could speak on behalf of all the members of our current board. I know I've just been overwhelmed by the fidelity, the commitment, the tradition, the presence of so many communities who are not exactly in positive or supportive environments like Texas, but who continue to thrive or continue to just kind of make it work for them. So there's a mutual learning that should go on. As Marie also said, we need to do a really good job on communication. You can never over communicate. So we'll continue to be focused on that. We have a limited staff, but we also have opportunities again to gauge people when they get committed and excited to share their stories and say, because National was there, it had this impact on my life. So I think it's those combinations of things, and we just need to continue to think creatively about this, and continually make sure that people know what we're doing. We as board members, certainly Lauren and myself, trying to be as present as we can to as many people as possible over time, so that we make that human connection and we understand we're all part of a much larger movement than locally. But locally, I belong to Chicago chapter, and we've been dealing with our own challenges and growth and trying to make sense of how we can continue to thrive. So I understand what those challenges are. But we need to be continually reminded we're part of a national or larger movement, and that when we are together as a national movement, we can achieve that much more, but can also do that by learning from and nurturing our local communities.
Anyone else want to chime in on that? Okay, thank you. There's a couple more questions, and hopefully we can get through some, and then we'll kind of do a wrap up. Has there been any effort to reach out to military and prison ministry? And I can answer that. There has not been any program to do that. We would need volunteers out there who would want to take that on. I mean, and each of them have had risks or challenges in the past in trying to do that. I know that Dignity in the early days had a prison ministry, but it's probably harder to do that in this day with the internet in some ways. But if someone wants to take that on, certainly they can approach me or come fall and approach Chris and Lauren to see that they want to do that. But certainly we welcome people that want to help expand the dynamic membership of Dignity USA.
Hey, Louis, can I just jump in?
Sure.
It was always the challenge with limited resources to focus on the areas that we can make a difference and we can offer our message. I think those are two interesting ideas. I had never thought of them. But what is kind of interesting is that from a timing perspective is prison ministry. Again, I'm in Chicago, and there is a new chapter, rechaptering in Milwaukee that's going on, which is just down the road from Chicago. Mm-hmm. And I spent Sunday meeting with their small community, emerging but strong and very active already. And there's an individual that's a member of the community. His name is Ron Zeilinger, and he created something called the Dismas Ministry, and he works in prison ministry. So when I saw the question, I thought, isn't that an interesting connection? So perhaps he might be an individual, or this is just how it works, that there's an individual within a community, within a chapter that has that interest or background, or here's somebody who obviously has a charism who could guide us and help us think about how we might have a meaningful ministry and be able to scale that in the organization, or how we might approach that. So that's how the Spirit works. The Spirit brings us people, and it's questions like this that say, have you ever thought of? But it's also thinking about who we have and knowing who we have out in the community who could really be, bring their ministry and their charism to a broader audience. So it's really interesting that came up, and it's interesting I made that connection with them recently. I would never have thought of that, but that's how it works for us as Dignity. That's been kind of our magic, I think, over the years, along with the help of the Spirit.
Right. I guess one last question, and we're just about out of time, is how do we respond to comments, why remain with a Catholic organization when there's LGBTQ plus churches such as the Cathedral Hope in Dallas that fully welcome and support who we are.
Well, if I might start,
This is Dan.
one of the things.
I don't really feel threatened. Hello?
Wait, Daniel, I think
Go on,
Maurice
Daniel.
started.
Call it Lewis, who?
You continue,
Okay.
and we'll have Daniel go.
All right. It really depends on how you approach church. When we're talking about Rome and the bishops, I try to consistently say the institutional church, because that is one facet of who we are. But the majority of church is us. We are the church. I mean, Vatican II was very, very clear about the people of God being the church. People in leadership are there to serve. And the institution moves at glacial speed and historically is led by the people. And so it's up to us to create the environments that are inclusive and welcoming and offer respect and inclusion and celebration of diversity. And so that's in our hands. And even if the institution doesn't want to back something that we're doing, that's okay. That's perfectly fine. In some ways, I think we, not just Dignity, but the progressive Catholic movement in the United States is creating a different right within the church. So I think eventually we'll call this the American right, but we're not there yet. And by right, it's R-I-T-E. So I am the church. How can I leave it? I mean, the question always puzzles me. I do get my Irish up, I got to tell you, some of the crazy things that come out of the Bishops' Conference. But I'm as much a part of the church as they are. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, Daniel? He might have frozen.
Oh,
Is he coming back? Okay, so while we're waiting for Daniel, anyone else want to?
Yes, there he is.
Oh, there he is. Daniel, go ahead. You froze. Okay, Lauren. Go.
I think, part of why I stay is, or why stay with a Catholic organization. I just think, I have, some friends who are gay, and, their parents really still are not accepting and cite the church as the reason why they're not accepting, or even people we've met going around to different chapters, young people, young adults, struggling with their gender identity, with their sexuality, who are raised in the church, are still very much a part of this conservative Catholic culture, but are really still struggling. And so I think that's kind of what keeps me connected, is that, I have to stay to be hope for those people and to spread the word and to really hopefully someday change the Catholic Church. So it's still so influential, to so many people in such a hateful way, that I think Dignity needs to stay Catholic, and we need, a lot of us need to, those who can stay, should, so that we can be that change.
Okay. Daniel, are you back? Oh. Daniel?
Hello?
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Hold on.
Daniel.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
You guys can hear me?
Oh, we lost him.
We lost him. Okay, anyone else want to quickly or say something to that effect? Or?
I think that's an interesting question, and you've heard great thoughts already. I guess I would just add to it. We have to be places of welcome. We have to be places of spiritual nurturance. We have to be communities. And I know in Chicago, we have challenges because we have an archdiocesan official ministry, that attracts population. We have a lot of affirming Catholic parishes. And we do have people that come to us periodically. We meet at a Methodist church. We have a sign, a pretty prominent sign on the street, and we're in Lakeview, which is the LGBT identified neighborhood. And people will come in and ask about, gee, I go to the Methodist church here, but I wondered what your community was about, or what do you think a GLOW is? What do you think about a GLOW, or what do you know about a GLOW? And what we've always said is, go where you find nurturance. Go where you find a place of welcome that meets your needs. But I would also balance that against our challenge to be welcoming communities and continue to be faithful to our tradition. And there's ways, as Marie's suggesting, we can live the real tradition, the real church that Jesus intended to start. And I think that's what gives us a special charism in place in our local communities. And people always make decisions, and we respect that, but it's up to us to provide that kind of welcoming, charismatic, thoughtful community that can hopefully be responsive to people's needs and do the best job we can as we try to continue to grow and bring people as part of that larger community.
Okay, great. As we're coming close to a little bit more than an hour since we started recording, we're going to allow people to, kind of give a closing statement, so to speak, to wrap up. Okay, so why don't we start with Marie?
Okay, caught me off guard. I'm not going to say much other than I love being part of the Dignity Movement. It is my priority in life right now. And my husband is 1,000% supportive, which is wonderful. So I would be honored to be able to continue to serve. And I promise you my best.
Okay. Martine.
Yeah, I'm just also honored and would be really excited to continue my involvement in Dignity and help, as we've been saying, bring Dignity into our 50th year and beyond. We still have a very unique space and voice in our society, and just people are coming to Dignity Washington all the time. Just this last week, a lesbian couple came for the first time and had never heard of Dignity before, and we're just so happy and excited to know that we existed. And they actually live like 3 blocks from our center, so they were also excited to hear the events that we have there right in their neighborhood. So just continue to exist to share the love in our community with everyone. So I'm honored to be part of it.
Okay, great. Daniel, can you give us kind of a wrap-up summary closing of yourself? Are you there, Daniel? You just have to unmute. I know you had some technical difficulties at the later part.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear?
Yes,
Hello?
we can.
So I'm going to quote two of my favorite people in closing. One is Dorothy Day. When I read her autobiography, I was just totally overwhelmed. But she says, God is relentless. And just when you think you've reached your point of growth, God comes back to ask you to do more things. So I think this is part of, hopefully, his plan for me. And then the last person is my favorite political person, Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, the purpose of life is to live it, to taste experience to the utmost, to reach out eagerly and with fear for newer and richer experience. So I'm really hoping, if elected, that I'll be able to help Dignity USA and learn some new and richer experiences.
Okay. And then Martine, we already did you, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So Lauren and Chris, I'm sorry. It's late on the East Coast. So
Sure. I feel so energized by this conversation. You know, even as we are kind of presenting our ideas, I loved hearing everyone's ideas, and feel really excited and energized. And that's the feeling I always have at our in-person board meetings, and when I'm visiting local chapters around the country. So, I'm just excited to kind of follow and see where the spirit leads us together.
and Chris.
I guess I'm the cleanup person. I couldn't echo more or, what I've heard from everybody that as we've spoken today and, shared our perspectives. I'm not kidding when I say, I think Lauren and I are very intentional in our statement that says I truly believe in our mission and purpose. And I've been inspired over the years by individuals, by chapters, by leadership, who have helped articulate that and made a difference for people. And that's, Daniel mentions Dorothy Day, talk about making a difference in having a purpose in your life. And I recently retired, whatever that means. I'm not kind of actively seeking work. And I was thrilled a few years ago to be invited to join the board. And I wasn't aspiring to it. I didn't ask. But people came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, we'd like you to be, what have you thought about being on the board? And I have spent 2.5 wonderful years in that experience. And in the same way, was kind of tapped on the shoulder and said, have you thought about being president? And again, with wonderful people to follow, like Lewis and Lourdes and all those who have come before, Mark Mattson, so many others, I felt like, it's my time. I need to do this, and I want to do this. And I think the other something I want to say is we do this together. I'm so excited that Lauren has also put herself forward as my partner here, and she will truly be a partner. We're going to do this together along with the board. And we've got a great group of people. We've got a broader, larger community to work from and work with. I'm excited, and I know all of us here in this group are excited and ready to go and look forward to having that opportunity to do so.
Well, great. Well, thank you all. Before we leave, I just wanted to say a few comments. One, the ballots electronically will definitely be available on May 1st. And those that are receiving a paper ballot, to please, they'll see that shortly thereafter. If not on May 1st, it should drop on May 1st. And then the ballots will be due at the end of the month, on May 31st. Also, in addition, you'll be hearing a lot of different things, not just about the conference that's coming up, but bylaw revisions and other things that Dignity has been working on for a while that we want to share with the greater Dignity community. So I thank all of those that participated tonight, all those that listened in and provided some questions, and I want to thank all those who are going to listen after this call and during the election season to see our 5 candidates who are running for the various offices. And most importantly, I want to thank behind the scenes Logan Bear, who has been working diligent trying to make sure that everything is working behind the scenes. Doing something nationwide is never easy, and it could be easier if we had an unlimited budget to do things, but we try to use the best technology that we have available to us at the price. So, and Logan has been able to do that. So thank you again, Logan. And thank you to all the candidates. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in leadership positions officially come October 1st, but certainly unofficially once you get elected. So thank you all, and everyone have a good night on behalf of Dignity USA.
We'll see